MP Honorable Muwonge is here. Thank you very much for coming. And you probably already heard that we call them comrades, are really from all over the world. So, for example, over there is Professor Milton Alemadi. Please raise your hands. So, he's a professor of African Studies and Journalism. I'm probably not saying it right. Which institute is it, Milton?
Journalism Columbia and African Studies at Muwonge College.
Right. So really great to have you here. And we have there a couple of ladies from the US, from the UK. Then we have behind you Mrs. Sakayo from Florida. Some more ladies from the US, and here from Vienna. This is integration, right? I mean, yesterday we talked, and he is living in Vienna, and he speaks very good German. And usually I don't meet Ugandans that speak good German, right? And look, he's integrating already. He's sitting between two Dutch. Yesterday he told me if I'm here within 3 months, I'm learning Dutch, and now I see why. So that's very good what you're doing here. So, so what I would like to start with a little video. And just to give you a little bit of an idea, this video was really made when we speak to our European and American partners to explain them not only about what's happening in Uganda, but also about their role in that whole affair. And so we'll show that video, and then I would like my co-organizer, co-host of tonight, Erik van der Zanden, which is here also on the first floor, first row, to say some words, and then after we're going to have the experience from the ground from Honorable Muwonge. So let's start with this little video.
On January 14, 2021, Uganda organized presidential elections. Museveni, whose rebel army comprised of child soldiers, came into power in 1986 after overthrowing the Vote 2 government. He has announced himself as the winner in all 6 presidential elections held since. Why does he even hold elections? Uganda is one of the world's poorest countries and totally dependent on donor aid, with a dictator who has been convicted for corruption. To continue receiving donor funds, the donors insist that Uganda has elections, a request Museveni is quite happy to comply with, because he has the ultimate solution: hold zombie elections. However, in 2017, Museveni's worst fears were realized. A young, charismatic and vocal musician contested and won a seat in parliament.
So it's about Kiadondo. That's at this moment is Honorable Muwonge's constituency, right? Yeah.
The former singer Robert Chagulanyi's centre-man spearheaded challenges to a number of acts, and in 2020 founded the National Unity Platform, of which he announced his intention to run for president. His humble ghetto beginnings inspired a generation of voters, and he immediately became very popular. Museveni's only solution to the threat Bobiwine presented was more violence and intimidation, and he's not secretive about his plan.
We shall crush those enemies.
His NRM party officials were instructed to stuff ballot boxes. Opposition leaders were thrown in jail.
We are not violent. I am a fully fledged judicial officer. I'm a magistrate. I only carry the voice of people.
Eventually leading to the arrest of Bobiwine, which made Ugandans furious as they took to the streets to demand his release.
Violently broken into the pop star politician's vehicle and taken him into custody. Wine, real name Robert Chagulanyi, is standing against President Yoweri Museveni in a January presidential election.
Army trucks drove through Kampala, randomly killing Ugandans. Over the course of the 2 days, the the 18th and 19th of November, over 100 unarmed Ugandans were killed. Right through the presidential campaigns, there were several attempts on Bobiwine's life. On the election day, January 14, 2021, opposition agents were beaten up, arrested and tortured, while NRM officials continued to stuff ballot boxes. A total internet shutdown was ordered, and on the 18th of January, the Electoral Commission released its results. But the numbers didn't add up. Ugandans protested the fraud, but they only have their bare hands to fight French tear gas grenades shot from Dutch-supplied SUVs. They have to face British and American trained soldiers armed with Israeli weapons using munitions produced in Italy. Those who stand up for democracy are tortured in prisons funded by the EU.
We had to blur this one because YouTube removed our first version of this movie. You can imagine how horrible it is.
Museveni was yet again proclaimed the winner, but the violence against the opposition continued, and so-called drones started to arrest and abduct opposition members. 2 members of parliament were picked up and thrown into jail on the basis of fake charges.
The pickup truck managed to cut off Malende's vehicle right at the intersection before the express highway, where the Joint Anti-Terrorism Unit officers then disembarked and muscled Segirinya out of Malende's vehicle and packed him into their drone. All the while, the officers cocked their guns and pointed them at journalists, screaming at them to go away.
PEN International Right of Courage, Kakwenza Rukira Basaija, was arrested and tortured by the regime's special forces. Kakwenza was denied medical attention and legal assistance. How much longer will the world accept this injustice?
Yes, so that is the small introduction. I would actually like, Eric, if you can please join us. I mean, we have these chairs here, we have to use them. So Mr. Muwonge, can you please come here? And Milton, I also want you to be here, right? We have sufficient chairs. I want also your opinion tonight about the things that we are discussing. Eric was together with me part of the UVO team. So this movie is about the elections, and we had an alternative tele center in my house in Amsterdam. We were on one side we were processing all the results that came in through the app, and on the other side we were live on Facebook streaming. That was where Eric was also involved in. And Eric, please, the floor is yours. Please tell us what you want to say.
Yeah, so first of all, I'm a strategist of peaceful revolutions. So what also interests me in this conference is now Ugandan diaspora is all over gathering together. We have heard why there is a need for freedom, for the liberation, and also how so far we're trying to gain that liberation. I personally prefer to map it in several spaces. Plan A, for liberation through elections, through courts. Plan B, through street protests, boycotts, or strikes. And Plan C is by stopping the donor support. I think, especially as diaspora, we are together in all the different countries, and we have so much power to influence the donor support, being Achilles heel of the dictatorship, because the only way they're able to pay for all that oppression, to be there on the streets constantly with the police, with the military, by having extra finances, not from themselves, from Ugandans or taxpayer money, but because of the donor finance money. So we already, also with Nico, we delved into where is the money coming from. For example, from the Netherlands, we know that they paid for building the Kitalia prison, even the bus to bring the prisoners. But even worse, they paid the fuel to bring the prisoners to bring them. And then the same for the courts. They're paying for the courts, and they're saying for the case backlog, we help the judicial system. But as you know, in Uganda, it's a completely different story than what they're telling, why the donor is being sent there. And also for, let's say, Uganda is an important country for refugees, but they don't realize that instead of Museveni being a beacon of stability, it's a beacon of instability. He's in so many countries, he's actually creating civil wars, leading the refugees to come to Uganda, because he's there creating all the instability. But more important of these, the context is what can we do about it? And I hope this conference is going to be a conference where, as a diaspora, you're going to develop a strategy of how a diaspora strategy. Some years ago, I think it was 2014, I was here at a conference from FDC, thinking in the same way BESG came, we were thinking, how can we liberate it? Of course, it was so far unsuccessful. And then this conference can be a different conference, that instead of being unsuccessful, the activists from all over the world, they are empowered, united, strengthened to really make a difference, and also really to bring others into the struggle. Because now the diaspora chapters, they're quite small. But I also remember CONI 2012, where students, children, elderly, they all came out on the street to become part of this movement. So it has happened before, several times. We can do it again, as long as we develop a strong strategy to include more of the local populations in our struggle. That was it for me to begin with.
Okay, thank you very much, Eric. So, Honorable Muwonge, you've seen the movie. This was your constituency, right, where Bobby got his first MP seat. Is that right? Yeah. And yeah, please, your comments and what you want to give to this audience.
Thank you, Brother Nico. I want to welcome all of you. First of all, the number of our Ugandan activists living in different parts of the world, especially Europe. I want to welcome you and applaud you for always thinking about Uganda. My name is Muwonge. I'm a member of Parliament representing Chadondo County East in Parliament of Uganda. I'm also the Shadow Minister for Foreign Affairs. I want to, on the onset, to applaud our team, the NUP chapter for Netherlands, for the wonderful and exemplary arrangement. A number of participants have already arrived. We have seen many of them, some not yet here, but for the coming programs, they are here partially for this conference. We value so much the diaspora as the opposition and as the National Unity Platform. I want also to formally announce the president, the party president, and also President of Uganda, elect, President Chagwe Robert, has also arrived in this country ahead of this conference, and will be participating in future programs in the coming events of the conference. With a number of party delegates, including party vice president for Northern Region, the party deputy spokesperson, a number of other members of parliament, and a number of other NUP leaders are already here in the country to participate in this event. This is to show you the weight as the National Unity Platform. We are attached to the diaspora and all the activism and mobilization towards the restoration of our democracy. Of course, the theme re-energizing the struggle is very pertinent for us in our democratic process and ensuring that we have effective governance back home in our country. I'm also quick to say that Nick has said that President Chagwe started by participating in the context in Chadondo East, but as we shall elaborate in the coming days and parts of the conference, our party president did not start with actually contesting for Chadondo. From his youthful stage and his energy, including his career as a musician, his songs have been liberation songs, talking about how to empower the people and restoration of the rights of the people of Uganda. From all his songs, and that's why part of the arrangements of this diaspora conference will include a concert, and he will showcase a number of liberation songs he sang way back before he came into the picture of standing into electoral process. Because it's not all about him being in an office. It's all about liberating the values, liberating the people of Uganda, and standing for the values of the people of Uganda. by the time he stood for a parliamentary election in Channel East, he had actually sung and moved across the country, calling for peaceful coexistence, calling for rights of our nationals, calling for rights of our Ugandans, the campaigning all kinds of injustice in our country. So he wasn't new in the struggle for liberation, for the struggle for change. Equally, he stood for MP Channel East, and he served so well, and he also stood in the previous presidential election. I would be quick to say that as an advocate, under our laws, a winner is a person who gathers majority votes, and majority votes are counted from the DRO, Declaration of Results form, which are captured from tally centers, and tally centers are the voting places for the nationals and citizens. In terms of the previous election, incidentally, as the National Unity Platform, we had enough teams on the ground, amidst all the challenges and intimidation and all the inconsistent environment put in place by the regime in Kampala. But equally, amidst all those constraints, the National Unity Platform gathered and collected all the forms from tally centers, and they indicate that the winner of that presidential election was Kyagulanyi Ssentamu Robert. We have not, and we shall not relate on our efforts to ensure that the people of Uganda realize their electoral outcome. That is, which president they actually voted. So as part of re-energizing the struggle, we arrived to the fact that we had a rigged election, which had all sorts of malpractice. But here we are. We value the role of each key player, including our nationals and the citizens across the world. In our constitutional order and back home in Uganda, our constitution recognizes the rights of nationals and citizens regardless of where they stay. Much as we are still fighting for their right to vote wherever they are. But equally, many of our Ugandans in the diaspora participated in the electoral process, and equally they campaign, and their rights also count. Even those who acquired alternative citizenship, our country allows a dual citizenship. You still have the right to participate in the electoral process, electoral exercise, and also deliberating on the destiny of our country. There's so many challenges and against electoral democracy. There's so many challenges against human rights and human rights. There's so many challenges against that to do with injustice. Of course, we have laws, but even the few laws we have, the few segments of the law, including a full chapter on rights, are not implemented or enforced. When we see any support towards the justice law and order sector, we want conditions which we don't see. If it is a matter of justice, then if people are tried, then under our laws they are treated as suspects. But in Uganda, even those being charged, they are treated as already guilty. We have a right to bail under our presumption of innocence under our laws. But no one can access bail, not even a member of parliament. That's why we have members of parliament still under detention. But we have a right to bail in our constitution. Now we would wonder, are you funding a justice institution or funding injustice? These are among the questions we must deliberate upon. So the justice, the law and order sector is a challenge. We cannot have now justice. You can't access bail. You can't access rights. And that's the only way, because without bail, in our country where prosecution is not it's at instance of the state, they can prosecute you for 20 years in detention if bail is not granted. This becomes a challenge, and many of the victims are the political activists. Charges are pumped up against individuals, not because they committed offenses, but because they want to curtail their participation. When it comes to electoral democracy or political democracy, we have the political parties and organizations acting in our country, which regulates operations of political parties. And when NUP unfolded from a movement called the People Power, which is also headed by President Kyagulanyi Ssentamu Robert, and now resolved into a political party. However, even the party itself is being persecuted. Day and night they are parading masqueraders, and many times NUP as a party is in the court, or put in context. So even the political party in its own name has a challenging way of living. Much as we are well regulated and registered as a political party with the Electoral Commission, but as well, also needless to say, it is hard to operate as a political party, not even to open party offices. They're always closed, they're always attacked. When we talk about electoral democracy and political democracy, it's non-existent in our country. Now, in the struggle to liberate our country and the rights of citizens, it calls for an inclusive approach where Ugandans and Ugandan communities in Uganda and those abroad, including the international partners, friends, and because you can no longer now live in an isolated place, where in a global village where every prayer and every voice matter. We are here to re-energize the struggle by calling upon and re-energizing our brothers and sisters, our countrymen in the diaspora, and also our friends in the diaspora, that there's a problem back home in Uganda, which needs all our efforts. So this conference will bring into picture the broader challenges we have as a country and bring into picture a broader discussion on what can we do to reclaim our political space, electoral democracy, human rights, the rule of law, and to mention but a few. I want to say many of our leaders will attend this conference, and I want to recognize the arrival of our party president, our party vice president. I've seen Honorable Zedrick has arrived already, the NUP vice president for Northern Region. She was greeting you people power. So we are here to energize the struggle because these challenges are real, and we need a deliberate approach of addressing them. We are thankful to the organizers, and we are here for a reason, because we know there's something you can do, there's something our partners and friends can do, and there's something all of us can do to liberate the people of Uganda and our electoral rights and democracy, the rule of law, human rights, among others, in our country back home. The electoral exercise was just part of the challenge, but the bigger challenge is how can the people of Uganda realize their rights as citizens to decide for themselves, also to live as meaningful individuals, where including the national resources or public resources are used for the benefit of the people of Uganda, not for those in power. I thank you for now.
Yes, so indeed, Dr. Lina has arrived. We just were watching you, Lina, in this movie, but it's so good that you are here. Please come join us. So, please another applause for Dr. Lina. Thank you so much for coming. Don't worry about being late a little bit. We also started late, so really so. Milton, and now I would like to give the floor to you.
All right.
I'm sure you have some thoughts.
Yes, I do. I will echo off the thoughts of the MP, Shadow Foreign Minister, and my colleague, Eric. As a Ugandan who lives in diaspora, it's very disappointing when you see such a brutal, corrupt dictatorship such as General Yoweri Museveni's, treated with kid gloves by the Western countries and Western institutions. And I have realized that our mission as Ugandans in diaspora is to show the direct link between the support that dictator Museveni gets from the West and the crimes that he commits in Uganda. Many people are not aware that even as we speak today, the Museveni regime gets $1 billion in US taxpayer money to support the government every year. Just think about that. $1 billion. That obviously subsidizes the dictatorship in Uganda. Now, many Americans are not even aware of this, right? But once they become aware, and that's where the role of activism becomes very critical. Once they become aware, those who are conscious they take action. They want to take action. They contact the members of Congress, the Senate. They join petition campaigns. And that's very critical because without the support of the Western countries, Museveni's dictatorship would not have endured for 36 years. The military training is conducted by US military officers, or Ugandan military officers are selected from Uganda and sent to the US for training, including his son, whom now we've gotten to the habit of referring to as the deputy dictator. He's grooming his son, General Muwonge, Kainerugaba, to succeed him. And judging by the sampling of what Muwonge has shown so far, he might end up being worse than his own father. Hard to believe. This is a general who was rapidly promoted simply because his father runs the country. And other qualified officers have complained. about this rapid promotion. Many years ago, when another general, who was still very close to Museveni at the time, General Seyusa, David, said there is a plan called the Muwonge Project to groom this individual to succeed his father. Many years ago, they sent the army to surround the newspaper that published that story, one of the country's best-known independent papers, the Monitor. Demanded to know where they got that letter from, produced that letter as if there would only be one copy of the letter, stopped the paper from publishing for a long time, and denied there was a Muwonge project. Now Muwonge is actually running around as if he is running the country. And he might be running the country. And he's been implicated in many of the atrocities that occurred right before the election, when who knows how many Ugandans were killed. The government itself admits to 54 Ugandans murdered in cold blood, November 17 and 18, after they'd come out to protest the illegal arrest of Bobiwine that you saw on this short film. Innocent people just killed. And yet, that sham, whatever process you want to call it, that was conducted a few weeks later in January, referred to as an election that, even with all the constraints that the MP mentioned, Bobiwine still won overwhelmingly. It was so clear. How clear was it? Even the United States that supported this dictatorship for 36 years, since Ronald Reagan, that's when he first became president of Uganda. I call him dictator because, as the MP just told us, he rigs all these elections anyway. He's been supported all these years by the U.S., almost blanket check. But this time around, for the first time, the U.S. issued an unambiguous statement saying the elections were neither free nor fair. When the U.S. says that, this is saying that we know you stole these elections. Why did the U.S. say that? Because the turnout was massive. I don't know if many of you are following the videos showing the people coming out to see Bobiwine, to listen to him during his campaign, even while soldiers were sometimes firing live bullets at his convoys or at the journalists who were accompanying him. People still showed up in massive numbers. I remember there was one town where the military cordoned off the entrance so people could not come in. People waded through swamps to circumvent the blockade and showed up dripping wet, but wanting to see their candidate. Whereas on the dictator's side, people were being bussed in, paid to be brought to his rallies. And that is why even the US had to admit that this dictator, and it's not surprising, the US supported Mobutu until the very end, over 30 years, so it's nothing new. But the US had to admit that this dictator lost these elections. And that is why that statement is still up to date on the website of the State Department. But I'm sure some of you who are listening to others for the first time are saying, this is news to me, and it's not shocking, because corporate media do not really focus on these issues to show the link between either Western action or inaction and the direct connection to what the kind of atrocities that Museveni is able to commit in Uganda. So when we have these type of diaspora conferences, this is an opportunity for us, Uganda diaspora, to inform and enlighten our sisters and brothers in diaspora, our European sisters and brothers, our American sisters and brothers, that it is your taxpayer dollars that is funding the kind of atrocities you saw in this video. Take action, whether it's your members of parliament, whether it's the elected ministers in the government, whether it's the president, whether it's the prime minister, please, your tax dollars, and I'm sure you don't want your tax dollars to be a part of this brutality that you've seen in Uganda. Which Western country would accept that one individual could be the ruler for 36 years? Think about that. Probably longer than many of you have been alive who are sitting in the audience today. If it's unacceptable in the West, believe me, it's unacceptable in Africa as well. We should not have a separate standard for Africans and a separate standard for the West. That's outrageous in the first place. We don't even need to elaborate on how outrageous is that. I just want to make one other point that I'm trying to now use whenever I make a pitch to people in the United States. The United States has gone through a very interesting phase recently due to the activities of the last occupant of the White House. Americans now know very concrete terms what it means to be in a country ruled by somebody who has dictatorial powers, somebody who does not respect the institutions, somebody who wanted to reject the outcome of an election and send people to storm the Capitol building and seize power. They were shocked because they've never had that kind of experience before. So now I tell them, okay, now think about this. You have actually been financing something that is far worse. You just got a little taste of it. But look at this guy in Uganda, whom you financed for 36 years. Now you must have more empathy, and you must help us make sure that the person who actually won the elections, that you acknowledge with your own statement, that person is sworn in as the legitimate president of Uganda. And that is Robert Kyagulanyi, aka Bobiwine. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Milton. One thing I forgot after Mwada and Eric finished is if you have any questions. So let's, before we continue with Dr. Lina, maybe there are some questions for one of the first three speakers. Welcome, Comrade Alex. Comrade Alex, please. We have a chair for you. So, thank you so much. So, Comrade Alex is the deputy spokesperson of the National Unity Platform. So we are very happy to that you are here. Don't worry about being late. We also started late, and we're very happy to have you here. So the three gentlemen in the middle already spoke, and it's really great that you're here. So later you can tell us a bit about your thoughts. At this moment, I wanted to ask the audience if they have any questions for the first three pitches by these gentlemen. Then I have a question for our guests from the young.
Where?
I had a question. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, just a very kind of practical question. You mentioned a lot of the money coming from the West going to Uganda and what's being spent. Are there any like fact sheets to be found about these things? Because
Yes. So for example, we did a lot of research on the Netherlands. Mm-hmm. So we figured out. I think it's total. We found out that for 2 times our official budgets from CAF was incorrect. So 2 times it was missing 1 million, and other times missing 3 million. And we also found out the exact expenditure sheets of where the money was going in Uganda. And then we analyzed what was going on. So if you're interested, we can share it with you.
Oh, yeah, I'd like it.
Yes. Yeah. And then we're also talking with some journalists to really make this common knowledge.
I just want to add to your question as well. Look at the situation. In 2018, in December, the U.S. had a trial in federal court that led to the conviction of a Chinese national for bribing General Museveni and his foreign minister, Sam Kutesa, $500,000 each. It doesn't sound like a lot of money, but that was like sort of like a down payment. They were supposed to form, first of all, they were supposed to get a oil concession for a company that the Chinese national was fronting for. And then they were supposed to form a joint family business between the Chinese company and the family of Museveni and the family of Kutesa. Kutesa's money was wired using a U.S. bank in New York. And that's how the United States gained the jurisdiction. Because you might be wondering, why is it trial in the U.S.? That's how it happened. Museveni is a bit much more clever. So when he stole the election from Besigye in 2016, he invited the Chinese national to come for his swearing in with a delegation of business people from China. and they came on a Gulfstream jet, and this is according to the U.S. Trial, the evidence that came out. And in that jet, they had a gift, wrap, and that gift wrap contained $500,000 in cash. Okay, so that's confirmed in the U.S. court in 2018. In 2021, the IMF still lends this corrupt regime $1 billion. And we had a protest, and we said, with this track record, the money is going to be embezzled. And sure enough, you don't have to be Einstein. The money has been embezzled. They can't properly account for it today. So that's kind of the kind of challenge that we're dealing with.
I wanted to add on something as well, just for record, that towards the previous presidential election, all there would be legitimate funding priorities for example, democratic governance was suspended. Mr. Museveni suspended the democratic governance facility that was going to the civil society and basically strategized to suffocate the civic and civil space. As we speak now, it was suspended towards the election, NGOs suspended, and all NGOs dealing in democratic governance, human rights, rule of law, could not now have free exercise or free space in Uganda. And it not only affect local institutions, including international and foreign institutions operating in Uganda. As of recent, the discussion of lifting the suspension has just started. So it leaves a very legitimate question. Why would you think a Democrat would suspend a democratic governance facility? Can that point at a respect to the rule of law or democracy or good governance? That should be a question. And that's a fact. It's a public fact.
In terms of figures, and for your take home, our budget as a country is 44 trillion. But our revenue, like this financial year, is going to be it is estimated to be about 24.5 trillion. So the rest of the 20 trillion is assumed to be got from grants, loans, of which this time round, Uganda is not, because our GDP has surpassed 50%, our foreign trade has surpassed 50%, and the international law is that once it is above 50%, then you are negated from getting concessional loans to commercial loans. Wow. Now we have already gone to the state of commercial loans. The anticipation, like from the European Union, it's a lot of money, because here we're now speaking about the European Union. And there's money that we would say is acceptable to us. But our challenge is that even these institutions help in giving the dictator what empowers him in forms, it may not be in forms of cash per se, but in forms of ammunition, tear gas, and those other issues. For example, now, we have an arms race as a result of the Ukraine-Russia war. There is an arms race. That is acceptable, and that has been passed by the European Union and the United States, as we are all aware of what is happening. But we just got a report a few days ago that Uganda has purchased some jets from Russia with their hind method in this time when there is an international crisis and when the people who sustain your economy have said, let's have a pause in purchase of arms, especially with the partnership of the countries that are involved in the conflict. At this time, because there are no elections, he doesn't put it down. He goes ahead and does that purchase, but facilitated by the power of the European Union. So the real figures of what here gives to Uganda, those we can avail, I think, by the end of our availability here, because we want to give you the real facts as figures. But definitely, the European Union plays a very big part, and this has gone even on the answer of the European Parliament.
Maybe so that you get the feel, I think 44 trillion, that is
shillings.
Uganda shilling.
Yeah.
Uganda shillings, 44 trillion.
Yeah. I think that is 44 billion, isn't it?
I'm not very good at the dollar billion, at the dollars and the pounds.
40% of the budget comes basically from outside sources, right?
50%, because we have 44 billion and it's about 20.
Right, okay.
And the taxes never come to the expectations of what they have in the budget, because they're not budgeting for what they have already approved. They are budgeting for the expectations of revenue that will be got from the masses. And I'm very certain we cannot beat the deadline of 24 trillion. So the biggest percentage still will go to different. And look at the budget itself. Look at the budget itself, where even when God helps us and you give us that money, where is the expenditure? Over 7 trillion goes to classified, like in this budget. Over 7 trillion is going to classified expenditure. This is unquestionable expenditure. Determined.
What percentage of the budget is that?
That is about 15. It's a big. It's one of the biggest we have. But it is, what is hurting is that it is classified. You don't question, because it goes to security. And that is why you will see such jets are being purchased, because there is nothing like that. And who are the people who are in charge of this classified money? The commander-in-chief is General Museveni. The commander of the forces is his son. They are in charge of the classified money. And State House on that very budget takes 1 trillion. That is General Museveni and his wife. 1 trillion for their State House expenditure. And that money, by the time we finish the financial year, if you have given them, like this time we have given them a budget of 800 billion, I am very certain that by the time we finish this financial year, they'll have gone for supplementaries, making it over 1.5 trillion.
Yeah, so I also had to get used to the shillings thing with the trillions.
The next time I come, I'll be aware with the euro.
But that means 2% goes to the State House. I mean,
Yeah,
outrageous.
yeah, it's too outrageous, and that's not, the classified is devoid of the expenditure of the military, because the military also has its own budget, which is about 4 trillion. So it is not acceptable. Yeah. It is not.
Yeah, so I'm chairman, and then I'm also taking pictures. Sorry about that. But, so, Alex, when we were talking about going to this meeting, you told me you wanted to have 20 minutes, but we even negotiated, right?
I will not have 20 minutes, maybe, but we shall have the conversation.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, I'm sure in your mind you had some stuff that you wanted to tell. So, yeah, just tell us what you want to say.
Being a teacher, sometimes I'm used to standing.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I am very humble.
Let me sit down.
I am extremely very humbled to be before all of you. My name is Alex Wise from Fumbiro. I am the deputy spokesperson of the National Unity Platform. But before getting to that office at the People Power Movement, I am the head of training and patriotism. It is more of our ideology that we are anchored on, because we are anchored on people power. That is our ideology. The party came in because in Uganda, under the multi-party dispensation, it was only going to be easier for us to propel our struggle democratically through a legitimate political vehicle that was a political party. But we started as a movement, and we believe on that because that is where we are anchored, the People Power Movement. That is the beret I am donning. But he is donning a beret that has the symbol of our political party, that is the umbrella. So these two berets are the same. The difference is that this one is the mother and the father, and the other one is the child. So People Power is where we are anchored most, because for a very long time, the dictator was using the opportunity of having resources, having the military, and his longevity, because he has been there for now 36 years, but his history of governance in Uganda and misrule goes back to over 50 years, because he himself accepts that he intervened in causing chaos in Uganda in 1970. That is on his testimony. So as People Power, when we started as a movement, our leader is in Amsterdam. Hope you will see him. it was about, one, reawakening the masses that they need to get involved. They need to get involved because there was, at our time when some of us were born, I was born a few days after Genome 7 had come to power. And I'm now telling you that he has been in power for the ages I have been on earth. That is how bad it is. Now, when they assumed power, when they captured power, they used populism as their advantage to create their dynasty. And that entailed a huge machinery, state machinery of propaganda. In Swahili, we call it siasa. And this propaganda was anchored on deceit, purely deceit and fake news. I'll give you the examples. For example, for us as we were growing up, it was assumed that Genome 7 had brought peace to our country and our parents could get opportunity to sleep because there was peace. So it took nearly 4 years of that time doing nothing but telling Ugandans that we are now having peace and we are going to professionalize the army. So he took a lot of years. He was supposed to be in power for 4 years. Then they extended the 4 years to 5 years to have a constitution. Then from 5 years to another 5 years to another 5 years to another 5 years, we are now 36. At the time, because of his power of resist, because they're the National Resistance Army, their duty was to resist. And unfortunately, up to now, they have even resisted the power of the people. So everybody who propped up, came up for this, it would not be easy because you could easily be isolated. If you are a professor like Almadi and you have so much words, you'll live in America for the rest of your life. If you're an artist, they will ban you from singing in the country. Like our leader, he cannot stage a show in Uganda simply because he has a different shade of opinion from a person who had had power for 36 years. So that isolationist policy, again, for a country that had been in war, to different people who are cropping up, affected the bourgeoisie, the middle class, because they wanted to maintain their status quo. Now, the dictators, I have found out that they use that as an opportunity. Whenever those supposed to lead the common people are compromised, the revolution and the change of governance becomes a problem, because it's always very difficult for the peasants to rise up on their own without leadership of the bourgeoisie or the middle class, where there is a social structure, just like it happened in Europe way back in the 18th century. All of us are aware of that. So his longevity in power has been based on corruption, handouts. Now they also have medals to those who have worked best for their interests. They award them presents, they award them offices, and that has assisted him to maintain a certain class of people who do not want to see what and where they are taking our country or how much the mess we are in. So it was important. And after seeing elections being rigged from 2001 to 2006 to 2011 to 2016, where I think our generation said it was enough and it was the right time for us as young people not to think about partying, not to think about all those other things that young people are engulfed in, because back home, our age has been put to drinking. At this time, all the young people are in bars. At this time, they are all playing games. I can tell you, you'll find a Ugandan person who didn't go to school, but he knows AZ Alkama team, he knows Ajax, because he bets on those teams. That has been made very easy for our young people. The social media tax, where they would earn, is for a fee. But for them to know the score of Ajax and Real Madrid is free. because they are going to have money. His entertainment, and people started following and listening to the message of change that was about to happen. But we needed the people power to have all these people behind this. And I'm very grateful. That is why we are here. This is the people power we are talking about. Today we are here to speak about how best, in civil way, we can have the end of gun rule and dictatorship in Uganda. And I think that is one that would warrant everybody to clap, because it is because of people power that we are positive this will happen. So as I were coming here, and as I was saying that I would want to have a few highlights, especially when I knew that you were here. There is no revolution in the world of humankind that is not assisted by humankind. The only challenge is that when do they focus on humankind, and who's humankind? Is humankind white? Is humankind black? Is humankind blue? Is humankind green? Humankind is humankind. And the reason we want everybody to be, we request everybody to be involved, is because death, one death in Amsterdam is the same death in Uganda. That is humankind. So we are coming here to ask for that humankind, for you to at least take a minute of your time and get your cameras down there. People are dying. And in Africa, this happens so much. In 1994, our neighbors in Rwanda died at the watch of the world. We don't want that to happen back home, because the unemployed youth will rise up. And when they rise up, by the time you want to shift your cameras, lives will be lost. Right. So we need to do whatever we can do, as I underlined the word civil, to make sure that we can at least liberate humankind. Let's forget about the borders, but let's go to humankind. We can stop whatever is happening in Europe. The influx, the immigration, whatever happened, you saw what happened at the border just a few days ago. Nico was updating us with what happened on the Africans trying to get to Spain. It's because back home, you have given room, you have facilitated the dictators down there to force people to leave their homes to your home. I want to believe that with more interactions, positive interactions, connectivity, we shall realize the dream of saving humankind back in Uganda, in East Africa. It's not very far, 7 hours. It is a home you would love, because it's not different from this place. The difference is infrastructure and gun rule. And we believe we can move forward, as long as what I can assure you, that the people in Uganda are with us. We are the same. We only need more voices to hear us out, and then our liberation will be a reality. Just like you did this. This is not new. You did this for South Africa. You did this for Africa under colonialism. Even after independence, we had challenges of the leaders you had handed power to as our colonial masters. I'm speaking about UK and others. When they did not do right, you intervened. Well, it may have been with a different modus operandi, but we also know that your intelligence can give us more reasonable, visible, and amicable solutions to how we can defeat that dictator. I can repeat that. We know that your intelligence can assist us to find amicable, possible, and in fact, shortest means to liberate our country. I thank you. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Comrade.
I hope I used 20 minutes.
Yeah, it was great. It was great. And it was funny what you were saying about flying 7 hours to Africa, because I think everybody here has been to Africa except one person, which is me.
Yeah.
I haven't been.
No, you must come as a celebrity. You want to come as a celebrity. The one who made the president.
So Okay, so any questions for Comrade Alex Weisman?
I just want to echo one thing he said, actually, in terms of the migration. It is actually one of the most catastrophic ignored stories in the world. And it's a measure of how things are so bad, because we never had this situation in the 1960s. We never had it in the 1970s, 1980s, 1990s. Think about it, no matter how bad things were. So how bad can things be today that young Africans are willing, not even to get to where they got this time? We don't know how many died during the crossing the desert, first of all. Nobody knows. Not all of them make that alive, that desert crossing, you know. And then the ones who swim across the Mediterranean on those rickety boats, knowing that hundreds die every year, but still willing to take that chance. And not as if they're coming to Europe, a good job is waiting for them. No, they're coming to work in those farms in southern Italy, or work in kitchens, or clean the bathrooms, streets in this country. Why? Because they want to send money to help their families back home. And he's saying, if the economies were not being destroyed by these autocrats, they would not need to make that journey. And I think that is a strong message that he's conveying. And I hope more people start connecting to that message.
Thank you. Other comments?
I have one more. There was also the Oslo Freedom Forum, and they said, those that are free do not flee. So also the dictatorship, when you maintain a dictatorship, when people, even though it's a poor country, but they're free, they will still try to build their own nation instead of seeing no options left. But if there's also no freedom, they're tortured or arrested when they're critical. There's no other way left to leave. So one of the first things to fight the migration is to start promoting freedom.
That's right.
Yeah.
And maybe to add, it's challenging that in modern day democracy, we would join hands as a world to defend democracy everywhere in the world, including Uganda. We have a number of nationals who are living in exile, not because they like it. We have so many applicants for asylum in different parts of the world, not because, especially Ugandans, not because they would like to be in Uganda. It's just because in Uganda, they can't, the law provides for freedom to associate with any political ideology, but in practice, it's not there. Yeah, voicing out dissent with the ruling regime is a crime not written in their law, but practically implemented. Now, you find many of them exiting and having an influx of asylum seekers and immigrants, not because they are running away from their country per se. They will be there to develop their own country, but the challenge is the internal democracy. Country partners the world to defend the rule of that democracy everywhere in the world, including Uganda. It remains a question for all of us. Otherwise, when we abet injustice, when we abet misrule, then we abet modern challenges, including the influx of asylum seekers and refugees. This can be dealt with by standing together in solidarity for democracy and the rule of law. And that's one of the basic challenges of Uganda.
One more point to add also, because it's a sophisticated dictatorship. If they come to Uganda and they don't experience the dictatorship, but it's because he created a view of intelligence. So even though it seems you have freedom of speech, there's no freedom after speech. The moment you have spoken, maybe it seemed that you could just go to the press conference, but then afterwards you're picked up and thrown into the jail. But then for the outsiders, it's invisible. They don't see what's going on. Except when you go deeper.
I want to add on something that there's something interesting which we actually get surprised. Some so-called observers from across the world, they don't know what they call observing an election. When they come to Uganda, for example, they are because like in the previous election, all independent observers were not accredited. Now, we have a system where observers friendly to the regime and one who are accredited. And even when they come, they are invited by the regime, received at the airport by the regime, driven to all the places where the regime want them to be. These observers never demand to interact with the people or actually access the people. And that's why you may find a few irregular reports by purported would be genuine institutions, which are not capturing the facts on the ground, not even for the electoral process. What we are narrating here is what happens on the ground and what you can watch in the media. That's why you have a few clips here by a few revolutionary media houses, and many of them by individuals because of the social media regime. Even when you run to social media, in Uganda, for example, in the previous election, even social media was shut down. And many Ugandans were accessing, for example, Facebook via VPN. Interesting, even the regime could also keep it respond using VPN. Now, you wonder what they want, and what they resist is what they want also to use. We have so many victims of even social media interaction. Many are persecuted, and some are even in asylum just because of social media interaction. You don't even have the freedom to socialize away from their politics, even to share and have experiences. Some of the laws are even crafted specifically to challenge people's rights and values. It's a big and broader problem, but as we interact here in this diaspora conference, we brainstorm a way forward and we identify there would be action points and how can we re-energize ourselves. I mean, it's the challenges. We can never give up. And the strategy of the conference is not to give up, but how do we re-energize our commitment? How we re-energize and motivate? There's so many ideas we have. What can we put together? We are a very peaceful group of democrats and activists who are rule of law and good governance, but caught and captured in a peaceful and lawful manner because the electoral laws allows us free space, which is not there. When it comes to governance, we would think any decent funder would question if I'm giving this particular aid, how is it used, where and how. But this business of just throwing aid, you don't know how it is used, and it can be it's beyond our imagination that you can throw aid, use it against the people, and you purport to be giving aid. What do you understand by aid?
I want to add a comment to what the Member of Parliament just said. In terms of Ugandans in exile, I remember there's a conference that I was a speaker at years ago in Chicago, and I was really hitting on the regime. And then somebody from the audience got up and stood up and said, I dare you to come and say these things in Uganda. You know what would happen. Now, coming from an audience member who always is pro-regime, I could understand that. But the ambassador of Uganda at that time to the United Nations, when that person made that warning or threat, stood up and gave him a thumbs up in this. So that just tells you that obviously it's condoned even officially. And then the other comment, and which relates to it, and I hope the Member of Parliament can also comment on this, in terms of supporting governments in African countries, specifically Uganda. Do you know that the most dangerous part of the elections in Uganda, yes, of course, the killings, terrible, but here's the worst part. There's something called an independent election commission. Every member of this commission is appointed by, you guess, the dictator himself. How can this be called election? How can Western countries finance this sham called an election? And I hope the Member of Parliament can comment further on this. Because I think if Uganda had a true election commission that was independent, Bobiwine would be in State House today, after the last election. So my hope is that we can mobilize sufficient outrage by the next election. There's a truly independent election commission in Uganda that will announce the actual results of the election. The last one was a sham. First of all, they shut down social media, Facebook, and that was the system used to communicate the numbers from the polling stations. So when the government produces numbers, people then, Al Jazeera asked, oh, by the way, since you shut down all social media and none of the numbers could come in from the polling station, how did you get your tally? And the person asked the question could not respond. Basically said, oh, we'll get back to you. That's how fake these numbers were. And then there's another point also. At one point, they were posting the numbers in the Daily Monitor, which is the major independent newspaper. And then another point, when they updated the numbers with new figures, the total number went went down instead of up. And that story was in the Monitor. So we wrote an editorial about it, and we linked it to the article in the Monitor. You won't be surprised to learn that by the next day, that article had been deleted from the Monitor's website. So you would click on the link, it would take you on a blank space. And I'm sure it's still there today, a blank space. Article can no longer be found. That's how sham these figures given purported to be the numbers showing how Dictator Museveni won.
To give an information there, the chairman of the Electoral Commission, and first of all, it was not social media applications alone. They shut off the entire internet.
Exactly.
That's very important.
Right.
They shut down the internet. Now, shutting down of the internet meant they themselves also could have no Jesus whatsoever to assist them get results all over the country.
Exactly.
But they were having results. Now, at a certain point, when members of the Special Forces Command had come with their doctored results, they passed them on camera. They passed them to the chairman of the Electoral Commission. And the chairman of the Electoral Commission asked them, "Are these the real figures you want me to read?" Now, it was live on camera. So what they did, they switched off everything. They switched off the live feed. They switched off the system where they were coming with their results, and they asked for about 15 minutes and then returned with very obnoxious figures. So it is extremely perturbing. And in the issue of elections, as I said, in fact, with specificity, European Union has a great hand in funding our electoral process. And we are thankful for that. But as that money comes in, it must come with, just like the aid is supposed to have a lot of attachments. Right. Let us have certain things fast done. And these things are supposed to be done today, not tomorrow. Right. Because the more they elongate the reforms, we did I don't know whether Madame Zedriga was there, but I think even Honorable was there. But we have what we call the document that we passed at Africana. You must have been involved. The consortium where we had talked about the reforms of the Electoral Commission and how we wanted it to be. It is from that document that we thought that we would have a person with the integrity of an High Court judge to be the chairperson of the Electoral Commission. What did General Museveni do? The dictator said, "Okay, you guys want a judge? Okay, no problem." He went and picked one who was not supposed to be a judge, elevated him to being a judge, prepared him. That is now Justice, the chairman of the Electoral Commission, Justice Vyabakama. In Justice Vyabakama, he gave him the office to give him the paradigm to come and take that position. This is the very person who who illegally prosecuted, I want to mark the word illegally, who illegally prosecuted Dr. Kizza Besigye for crimes of rape, allegedly, and the whole case was a mess. Now he was elevated to be the person in charge of elections. You can imagine that paradox of democracy. Funded by the European Union, which European Union is espoused on taxpayers' money of the individual personalities in those individual European states. So your voice matters.
Yeah, thank you so much, Alex. So,
you can think somebody.
Yes, Mr. Sakayo, please go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to supplement something very interesting. That during the tallying of votes, usually what would happen is you announce votes coming from a certain area, and you say this area, so and so has got this, so and so has got this. Now what happened in Uganda was new updates. Museveni is this. Bobiwine is this. Some people asked, where are you getting that one from? Where is it coming from? And Gabakama could not shy out to say that I'm dealing with Uganda. Imagine that kind of answer, that is dealing with Uganda and the votes are coming from Uganda, but you could not mention a specific area that these votes, this update is coming from such and such an area.
Which is in fact required by law.
Exactly.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sakayo, Ms. Sakayo. We were talking about election rigging, and we have Honorable Muwonge here, but actually we have two honorables here, because we have an honorable-elect, Harriet Akwede. Please stand up. Because Mr. Muwonge is in an area where the support for NUP is so massive, they can't rig the elections. And in her area, it's a bit different. Harriet, please give your comment to how was it for you with the Electoral Commission?
All right,
Yeah.
thank you very much. I can stand here. My name is Nakwede Harriet. My name is Nakwede Harriet. I come from Kayunga, to be specific. Kayunga, I said Uganda, to be specific, from Kayunga district. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for the invitation. I want to thank our friends from the diaspora for the good work that you are doing. I was sharing with Sister Amina, I don't know how she's here, and she was giving me very good information, saying if someone misbehaves in Uganda, it's no longer good news that when you misbehave in Uganda, you can move and come to abroad and maybe enjoy whatever you have rooted from Uganda. So all they need is just to say, Harriet has misbehaved in Uganda. So wherever we find her in any state, we just have to say, you misbehaved in Uganda, so please go back and they deal with you. Or else we shall deal with you from here. Stories of the Electoral Commission. We have talked about electoral reforms for quite a long time. Every time I think about talking of electoral reforms, I just know we are talking about something that they know very well. But you know, this is a game. Unfortunately, the person who sets the rules is also an actor, no, in the game. Whatever they do, they must do what is in their favor. When we talk about Electoral Commission, the Independent Electoral Commission, they work on orders. What happened in Kayunga, for example, if we took this as a case study, if you go and ask Mr. Byabakama, will automatically tell you, surely NRM did not make it. But the order was, you must declare. Adeno Museveni came to Kayunga to campaign for his candidate and said, even if you dance for 20 hours, NRM has the last what? So when you see Byabakama in the chair as the chair of the Electoral Commission, just know it's Museveni who is seated there. Now, most important, you just go and ask him what is your interest in this campaign. If he tells you I want NUP to win, you automatically get it. If the interest is that they must win it, they will automatically do what? Win it. The good news is the people of Uganda are ready for change. Because we shall go out to them, just remind them a few things about what is going to take place on some specific day, and for them they're ready to go and look for the umbrella and take. Now, after they have said, we have voted NUP, now it's our other duty to see how we can pick it. I really don't believe NRM or the Electoral Commission under Museveni can sit down and say we are now giving it, because the people of Uganda have said NUP must lead. So now, after doing the campaigns, sitting in the tally center to, witness the counting, just like it's always done, someone is like, we did not have an opportunity to receive the results from the different polling stations. Now you has the final tally. Can we please share? And the person also doesn't have it. Why? Because they know if they just show you what they have, it's a disaster. In Kayunga, if you had a video, a whole video from the beginning of the tally up to the end, you will see that what was tallied is different from what is on the final sheet as results.
Actually, we have videos.
Yes, you know, we've been sharing.
Yes.
Completely different. Now, one thing we can do is, how do we enforce electoral reforms? If we can't do that, then we say, how do we win and then be in position to pick our win from the mouth of the person declaring? And this time the person is like, you know, I declare NUP winner of this election. Otherwise, we are there. I'm happy to see that the diaspora is so much interested in the affairs of the country, Uganda, where we come from. We want to thank you for all the support that you are giving us. Re-energizing the struggle, I was telling my people in Kayunga that when I come back, I'm going to give fire. If you don't want to catch fire, don't come near me. So we just want to thank you for organizing this. But
could you also mention how you actually physically are sponsored during the campaign? Like, you ran for that district.
Yes. On the last day of our campaigns, you know, we close campaigns when there is a day, then a day to elections. And to everyone who has an organization, for example, something you're organizing, everyone will put certain tasks for the last day. Everyone knows whatever I've done, I will do it on the last day. So for them, it was their last day, and for us, it was also our last day. We had a program. We had about less than 2 weeks to run 13 sub-counties. Actually, they were not 2 weeks, about 12 days. So on the last day of our campaigns, we were written to by the returning officer saying, you do not have to move out today to the town council. And that's where I was supposed to do campaigns from. And she was like, you know, the president is coming here. And you know, is the, so you cannot run besides him. Then I was like, one time I even saying, we have a president, quote this, who is too jealous. He's actually like God. And God is jealous. When you worship him, you do not have to worship another person or another God. So that's important. It is coming to a place, another person doesn't have to be there, even if you are supposed to be there by law, just like our program was. So of course, you know, we couldn't just give up. We said we must be there. And of course, we had used to see how our campaigns used to be. When he's moving, it's like he has a factor that he tells people. And for us, we used to have very, very many people. So they were like, no, we cannot risk. And you know, a lot of money had been taken to the district. Maybe to give him a picture that even the NUP people are not doing well, as if baby doesn't watch social media. So they came and they were saying, you were told not to move out. I was with Honorable Zach that day. So whatever you saw happened. But just like you know, when governments are coming to the last days, especially those dictatorial governments, even when they do something, they'll come and say, no, it was. That have already been shown. No, they're just, you know, those are still tactics of NUP. They were not beaten. They were not, no, we did not rig. So they came, blocked us, we couldn't move, and they started beating us. What shocked me, though I wasn't shocked a lot because I knew, was seeing people were even putting on NRM t-shirts, also putting chains and guns to come and participate in the business. Inside me, I was like, if these were robbers, we would say, NTM police will come and rescue us. But where I would run for rescue are the very people who are participating in this, and I knew our hope wasn't there. Until the driver forcefully pulled out the car, and we actually left it at the bumper of the car. And then from there, I don't know, God guided him and drove off. Then they followed us until everyone found his own way. But that's the very day when Mr. Museven said, even when we danced for 10 hours, actually was now saying that people of Kayunga were ready to vote for change, but even when they do, we wouldn't be declared. So whatever happened, we foresaw it. Reading began in the night on that very day. Very many boxes were bought in the morning for. There is a councillor who made a statement. Her father died towards the general elections. So the father did not vote because he was dead. So on that day of the by-election, by morning, by 7, her father had come to vote for Muwonge.
The late.
Yes, the late. So she was like, you know, I nowadays hate my father. We said why? Because my father couldn't come to vote for me. But can you imagine? By 60, he had come to vote for Muwonge. Muwonge is the person I ran with. So that day, even the ghosts voted, because for them, they could just come and tick wherever they could tick, just to show that maybe these people voted. However, I want to say this. We were not declared, but nobody doesn't know that we won. That's one. But also, when we go to elections, they are different, you know, our wins, the wins are many, you know, there are very many wins. Let me say wins, even when they don't declare you, like for this particular one, Mr. Museven, maybe the people who didn't know, people were still saying maybe we did not win in the general elections. They came to know what exactly the NRM does. One time I met with some NRM person and was like, hello, how are you? Then it was like, yesterday, the gentleman he was with, do you know this one? Then was like, huh? I had a mask. Then he's like, this is the Naked of Kayunga that we read this. So they also know. Yeah. We just want to keep strong because we know, even, you know, this was just a small component of our win, because our win is a big one. Because even if I sat in that chair, the win that we got on that day as the struggle is paramount. We went to court, but I was telling people, even the day we went to court, we knew we had already won. We have a sure win. People were telling me that you're wasting your time. Do you think Museven can tell his people to declare you? Then we said, you know, for us, we have gone to court with a sure win. If they declare us, it's the win. If they don't declare us, it is still a win. So we are in court with a win already. Whichever results, we are winners. When we sit in the chair, we serve the people. If they don't declare us, the regime will be more exposed. I want to thank you.
Exposed by fire.
The only further description I wanted to make.
Harriet, can't you stay with us? Maybe one of the gentlemen.
Yes, please. I had no.
It's okay.
Harriet, we want you here.
Harriet, we want you. I am also insisting that he comes because I'm finishing.
Thank you.
And you know, my job back at home is to call guests, big people to decide. Please, can you come and take your chair? You know, that's also.
And by the way, he has an excuse because he broke his, what is it?
Collarbone.
Yeah, exactly. And I see you have pain.
Yes.
So that's why you want him to sit there?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So then
I will just
less pressure.
Okay.
Yeah.
If that's the issue, then I take back my responsibility. Anyway, I wanted with specificity to talk about her arrest and her brutality because it was done by the Special Forces Command. And the Special Forces Command is an elite force that is supposed to protect the integrity, dignity, and the fountain of honor. So they did something very dishonorable by battering the woman who is not an officer, and yet they are at least supposed to keep the sanctity of the office of the presidency. but also on that very day what they did first. Now, General Museveni was going as the chairman of the National Resistance Army to represent